Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Interesting as Fuck. We are here as just if you're this is your first episode with us. We are here to talk about how one is interesting at work, personally, at parties, on the metro, in an elevator, whichever one you'd like. Um, we've had a couple, previous episodes where we kind of set up the narrative, like why we're doing this, how we're doing it. This episode, what's on the docket for today is the following. We are going to we're going to give you suggestions on how to exit a conversation. We had an episode two ago about how to enter one, and now we're talking about how to exit one. And we thought it was very timely because of what is it, 4.8 billion people are voting this year or something like that. And so political discussions, heated discussions are happening, and sometimes you just don't want to talk about it. You just want to leave, you don't want to have a conversation about it, or if you're talking to somebody and need to go, how to exit. That's what's on the docket for today. And then, of course, we will chat about that. And then at the end, we will tell you what our next episode is. So, Elaine, take us away. I have a great example about how to exit or not exit a conversation, but I think this is a great skill to have, especially given light of like you said, when we were chatting about this about the holidays that are coming. How do you exit a conversation?
Oh boy, I am not the best at exiting a conversation. But like we said when we introduced this is also to help us continue to grow as people.
Indeed. And as I said in like how to enter a conversation, maybe I shouldn't just enter it and just maybe I should have a little bit more finesse.
No, but sometimes it depends. So I know I like to manage expectations. If we're talking because it's really a case by case basis. But if it needs to be a quick conversation or someone kind of calls you or reaches out out of the blue, unscheduled, which not everything has to be, but a lot of times people will be like, "Hey, am I catching you at a good time?" Instead of just saying yes, I'll be like, "Yeah, but," or be like, "No, hey, but like I do have time now." So sometimes it's about managing expectations. To be like, I have 10 minutes and I have to, it's a hard stop in 10 minutes. And I don't think that's rude. I think that's respecting your time. That's if you legitimately do have a meeting, that's respecting the person's time who you're meeting with. If you want to use that as an excuse because you think this might turn into a longer conversation than you think it is, like, sure, you have 5 minutes, like, so it needs to be brief. That's always okay. In terms of like you're at a party or you're at a reception and it's just whether the conversation's just not interesting to you anymore, it's taking a turn you don't like, or you just genuinely have to go. I mean, if you just genuinely have to go, that's an easy one. In terms of backing out of a conversation, like I kept laughing to myself because I just kept picturing Homer Simpson like
Going
backing up into the hedges, or like Peter Griffin, like, well, time for me to hit the old dusty trail. I just kept thinking, like, what are my examples of that? And it's something I need to get better at. But because listen, I'm also Italian. I'm a Sagittarius. I am stubborn. I'm direct. So sometimes, depending on who the crowd is, I will say, I'm no longer comfortable with this conversation and I'll just leave, right?
Yeah.
That makes my feelings known. I've just stopped my participation in the conversation.
Right.
I think also, again, I'm kind of rambling, but it really just depends on the situation. Sometimes, like if someone enters a room that I was waiting to see, or I know somebody, that's the best one, right? Like kind of like Saved by the Bell. You're kind of in this conversation where you're like hemming and hawing, or it's a conversation you don't like, and then someone walks in. You can say like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Excuse me. So and so just walked into the room, and I've been waiting to see them. Whatever."
Yeah.
But yeah, I think like sticking around doesn't do you any good. It doesn't do the other person any good. Do you have any good ways of that, like,
So,
slow walking it?
so yeah, like Homer Simpson backing it
Yeah.
into, honestly, when I, are part of a conversation that I really don't want to be part of anymore. Let's say it's getting politically heated or people are talking about things. And of course, these two, I think there are two distinct places where these things happen. It's either a work conversation or a personal conversation. And the idea is if you're doing a work conversation, honestly, and I say this, I think, with absolute certainty that Elaine would also agree with me, never get into a heated conversation at work. Like, just let it go. You are not going to change that person's mind. And this
Yeah.
won't be the place for you to do it. Right. So
Right.
I think, I think in that instance, it's a for work thing. You can go quickly. If it's getting heated and and there's like a lull in the conversation because they're expecting you to talk, you be like,
Yeah.
"That's interesting to hear. I, probably need to read up more on it. But actually, now that I look at my watch, I have a call. It's okay. Like in that instance, like it's okay to, I have a call, I have a meeting, and just
I have to
exit
prepare
it.
for a call.
If you have to prepare for a call, if like
Yeah.
you have a deadline, something you need to submit. But I think in that instance, like work related, I think it's always best to exit a heated conversation.
As
um,
soon as possible.
as soon as you can, because we all get heated, right? I get heated. I've been in situations where I've gotten heated in a work conversation, and I apologized afterwards. So that's what I did. I was like, I should, that wasn't the place for that to do it. It was inappropriate. And it happens to everybody. And I think don't
Oh,
beat
yeah.
yourself up too much about it. But I think if you have like a plan for the next time, I think that's what you can do.
I
um,
think apologizing is a really good thing. If I can stop us there for a second, I think
yeah.
that, like, admitting that you're wrong, or not even that you were wrong, or maybe you just got a little bit more excited than you intended to, like, I think that's the best. I feel like it seems like people are having a harder and harder time doing that, but I do just want
Because
to point out that that's a really good move.
yeah, because apologize is I always think, people are always taking two approaches to apologizing and being wrong. Um that it is, very like some way makes you look less, and it doesn't. It makes, that
Right.
if the other person interprets that as weakness, that's their problem. You are
Yep.
getting better and you're improving your skills. So I think that's number one. And I think at work it really creates and helps you have a way to manage conflict, right? If you know how to exit a conflict that you're not ready to manage, right? And you kind of bring other people down. There's actually a great book called uh losing but I know it's Jonathan Haidt. Jonathan Haidt's the guy that's writing about the cell phones and then kids can't have cell phones. He wrote
Oh,
another book
yeah.
about why good people get really heated and really kind of nasty sometimes about politics and religion. It's called The
The
Righteous
right
Mind.
the righteous mind. Yes, yes,
Yeah, and
yes.
it's a great book to like talk about, and he gives you kind of these tactics on how to, like, if I remember correctly, I like read it a while ago. But that's kind of one of the things that you kind of can look at. So I think that's number one for a work related conversation. Get out as quickly as possible. If you need to fib and say you're preparing for something, have a deadline, do it, because it will end in tears. Don't do it. To a personal, like, kind of context. So I think, that is up to you, right? It's who you're talking to. If you're talking to a family member, I think it really depends on how close you are to that family member. Usually, it can get heated, but you can kind of bring it back down with like a joke or something. Or if you want to
Yep.
go and you can say, like you said, if it's a friend, family, you can be like, you know what? I'm not comfortable with this conversation. Maybe we should talk about something else. Did you see what that aunt did the other week, right? And bring it to something completely random, right? That's one, right? And that could not necessarily be about politics. It could be about something that you like, an internal conflict. I think a personal one also, and this is a story that I will say. Last week I was at the metro, and in the area that we live, obviously a lot of people talk about politics, a lot of people talk about, these things, and I got cornered by somebody who obviously was had maybe some mental health issues and was chatting. And the first thing that I did was, crap, I'm near subway tracks. I am going to back myself against a wall as quickly as possible, right? Do not, like, I did not want to give this person any like fodder for me to like, and this person was just talking. She was just saying certain things that I obviously didn't agree with, but I kept going, okay. And it was the most conspiracy laden theories I've
Oh my
ever
God.
heard. And so I kept going, oh, I haven't really looked into it. I haven't researched it. I have to do the research. And then she goes, and she went for my trigger. She goes, I don't know how these kids get job these days. They're not really that intelligent. I was like, was that just called stupid? He goes, like, and like, so like, I just kept going. So
What?
yeah. And in that instance, I could not exit a conversation, right? I had to just sit there.
She
And
baited you.
she did bait me,
She
and she
needled
did
you.
not get me. She did not get me. I learned my lesson from the day before, seeing the master baiter, Jack. Anyway, so that's a personal issue where you are against somebody who might, if you feel, never, doubt your instincts. If you feel like it might
Mhm.
turn violent or might try to like be as non-committal as possible, keeping it, neutral ground, let that person, usually when these people speak, they just want to be speaking. They do not want to
Yes.
hear your opinion. They do not care. They just want to speak. And I think and I think that's another situation. But three, when you actually want to exit a conversation, what I've done is, if I'm at a reception, for example, for work or personal, I usually don't really say anything to anybody except for the host. I always, somehow like go, thank you so much for the invite. It was great. I will, text you later or something like that. And I leave. I think knowing when to leave is very important. Um,
Yes.
Timing is extremely important in these situations because, I think sometimes when you're chatting with people that you know or don't know, you kind of know where the conversation's going to go, right? If it's a work related context, you're going to be talking about projects and things like that. And eventually you're going to be like, oh, well, the deadline is XY. Maybe we should have a call next week to talk about the next steps, right? So there's a lot of ways that, contextually, you can exit those. But I think it's about trusting your intuition. It's
Yeah.
about trusting your gut. Your gut usually is not wrong. If you're talking to somebody and you go, you know what? I'm starting to feel slightly uncomfortable here. They'll say certain things and you're like, and then I would find, maybe a lull in the conversation. Like you said, if you saw somebody, you can be like, oh, I really need to chat with this person. We can
Oh,
talk.
my cup is empty. I need to
Yeah, let me go
go
get another, let
refill.
me get another beverage. Oh, I need to go to the
Bathroom.
bathroom. Like, go to the bathroom, man. Like, it's
And then I
okay.
just never come back. And I just never
Just
leave. Never come
never.
back.
Well, 'cause, I think there's, work receptions. I don't think you really like say goodbye to the host or whatever. I mean, I
No.
tend to, but then again, like it's not. But always, and the exiting conversation in like a party, you guys do not be the last people to leave a party. Just don't. Do
No.
not be. The second you start seeing space, like second you start seeing a little bit more space than you did before, even though you're having a great ass time, leave. My husband
Yes.
will not leave a situation. Like if we ever go to like a party or something, I have to be like,
I find that very interesting based on his country of origin.
like so weird. I'm like, it's very much like he never has FOMO ever in his life, but like at a party, he does not like know when to stop. I'm like, dude,
What does that feel like to not have FOMO? What does that feel like?
I
Because
don't know what it.
I live with it all
all
the
the
time.
time,
It's
all
why
the
I'm
time.
constantly busy.
Yeah,
I also married someone who like suffers from it too. So we're constantly like, of course, we're going to do all the things because we have to.
exactly. He does not have FOMO except for when he's at a party. When he's at a
That is
party,
hilarious.
he will not
I'm
leave.
shocked.
Yeah, like
I'm shooketh.
it's so contradictory. You're just like, we're literally like, so he's very quiet, reserved, but he'll be like, he's very
Yeah.
social in a way. Like he likes being around people. And I go, we have to go. Like we have to go. And like,
And
go ahead.
I was going to say, it's so funny. And I've seen conflicting reports, which about, we won't, many of us a little bit older may know this as what has been dubbed the Irish exit. We'll call it an abrupt exit or ghosting a party. But
Ghosting.
I've seen
the youngest would understand ghosting, right?
But like I've seen conflicting reports that is actually like the proper thing to do in a large
ghost?
party.
Just leave.
Well,
okay.
But basically like you're saying, like, of course you think your host, you go say goodbye to them, but then like, okay, I'm Italian. I have to say goodbye to everyone in the room for 10 minutes.
Yep.
That can take a while. And I'm also not thinking ahead and being like, all right, it's an hour out from when we'd like to leave. We need to start saying goodbye now. And so also like oftentimes people will interrupt conversations to say goodbye to people.
Yep.
And so literally like I've seen conflicting reports, and it's also, I feel like it's a very divisive issue amongst people who do it and don't do it, to say like, and I will say I used it because we were just kind of, when I was pregnant, we were just kind of getting back into like seeing people, right? Because we were both pregnant during COVID. So we've got COVID babies. And so like coming out of that and being back at parties, like when I was ready to go, we just left. And so it was the first time I ever really got into that practice. And we would get in the car and I'd be like, oh my God, I get why people do this.
Yeah.
I just saved us 30 minutes.
Yeah, like, for us, like North Africans, we have to say goodbye to everybody. Like I've just recently got into the thing of just telling the host goodbye and leaving. Like maybe saying goodbye to like one or two people. Like for example, Elaine, if you were at a party and it wasn't you hosting, I'd say goodbye to you, right? Like I wouldn't be like,
of course.
Like, do you know what I mean?
Of course.
Of course there's every like, but this might be when we post this episode, maybe we put this as a poll for everybody. Is Irish
Love it.
Ghosting a party or whatever people are calling
Love it.
Maybe we do this on Instagram because we are millennials and we do everything.
Yeah. No, I mean,
none of that.
We're not going to do all the other stuff. No.
Facebook's too old. I have not.
Oh no.
Logged into my account since like 2017.
I can't. I just can't.
I Irish exited Facebook.
I said goodbye to no one.
My last post was like, my last post was like of a ceiling.
A ceiling? Wait, now.
And you've seen pictures of like too much negative space, like an idiot, because I don't know how to take pictures. And also, how are people taking pictures out in the wild? Like, are we like just randomly like pulling out our phones and like taking pictures of shit? Because I always like do it really fast. I'm like, I don't want people to see I'm taking a picture. I get really nervous. Anyway, I think.
Oh, fuck that! I love taking pictures.
I think it's of a.
I'm trying to find like the last legitimate like Facebook, because there might be one where it was like still connected to my Instagram page that's up there, but like I'm trying to legitimately find like a post that I did that's it's probably just fundraising. It's probably just marathon fundraising, to be honest with you. But anyway,
when I was doing the race for the every mother counts, I did a post there.
There you go. Okay. Yeah. Anyway. So no, I love the idea of the poll.
See what people think, and we can like, next episode we can like chat and
reveal it,
kind of talk about the results. But yeah, I think I think we've gotten some like good pointers here, right? If it's at a party, you don't need to say goodbye to everybody, and that myself and Elaine are taking that as a note. We are going to try.
We're going to take our own recommendations into the wild.
We are into the wild. We're definitely going to do this. So this is like in a personal situation. In a personal situation, like having a if you're having a heated discussion, if it's a family member or a friend, you can always you can always just change the subject. Be like, I'm
Right.
uncomfortable. If they're a family member, or even if you know they're not close, you can be like, peace. I'm out of here.
Yeah.
I think it's much easier when it's work. Again, do not get into heated conversations, right? We want people out. We do not want people to have conflicts at work, because it just doesn't end well. So I think those are the things that I think writ large and like exiting conversations are always like things that I think of, at least.
I think it's a really, I think the work versus personal is a very important distinction to make as well. Like very,
Yeah.
very important one. Because I
Yeah.
agree, your reaction should be different in those situations.
Yeah, and it doesn't make and I think a lot of people wonder if that makes you less authentic than
I don't think
not.
so.
And but I think there's a lot of people that are like, obviously, and I mean this, not just younger than us. I think everybody has like a personal and a private, like a work and a personal like persona. And I think there should be a distinction, because at work there's a certain like there's a line, right? You're there as an employee, you're there to fulfill like a certain a certain purpose, and it's not necessarily about your opinions. And I think we've done this. We've worked with different organizations, different companies that we didn't necessarily agree with,
Right.
but we didn't say it at work, for example, right? We would say, this is what, from a professional context, I can say, or I will say.
But do you also remember, I think it's literally inherent in everyone that your personality is a little bit different, or how you might react is different between work and home. Remember, we did the Discovery Insights. And I think what is part of it, so if the company you work for ever offers Discovery Insights, like, do not miss that day. It is so fascinating. It'll change the way you work with, it'll change the way you work with people. It'll change the way you converse with people, like truly. So I thought one of the most interesting things was you go through your results, and a lot of the questions are work related, but then they have you open to the page that shows you how you are and what your leading colors are at home. And everyone, literally every single person, their colors changed. And I'm not saying they flipped or anything, but the percentage of each color changes, because at home at home you have to be more of the caretaker, or you have to be more nurturing, or at home you're the boss, so you have to be more direct. So I thought that was fascinating. So I think it's like totally, I think that's everybody. That's different between home and work.
I think that's a great point to bring up, right? It's okay, and it doesn't make you, like you said, less authentic or less of you. It just really makes you a little bit more cognizant of the fact that you don't necessarily need to mention your opinions on anything, really, at work.
Right.
I think we've talked about this, Elaine. I think a lot of people at work don't know my opinions on things, because I've like, to a certain degree, honed it as so to talk about topics, but not necessarily volunteer what I think about it. I actually ask what other people think about it. So that's another way to be interesting at work, is to say, hey, like, for example, this book, The Righteous Mind, right? If you pick it up, let us know what you think. And it could be like, hey, I read this book about how people kind of have these conversations around these topics. Or you could talk about other things, the show you're watching. It does, like, if it's going to be heated for you, and you are on a, like, it touches you on a personal level, I think it's always good to keep it keep out
or
of
just
that
change the subject. Yeah, you can absolutely just change the subject. You know what I mean? Like, that's perfectly fine too.
Yeah.
Um,
Um, yeah, I mean,
Speaking of changing the subject
speaking of exiting,
and changing the subject,
I don't think we can
because we've
Irish exit here. I don't think we can.
no, that would be rude.
And
Can we just do we just like edit
do we
it
just
so it
like
just
cut
like
it?
cuts off
No,
mid sentence?
we're our
That would
genes are
be
too strong for that.
hilarious though. But that would be so funny.
That would be funny.
Oh my god.
Maybe we
Um
do it at the end when we say what our docket stuff is, and then we go just like abruptly.
I love it. Well, I was gonna say in speaking of changing the subject, we've got a very interesting because we like to be on brand and interesting on this
That's right.
podcast. Our next documentary on the docket for The Doc is In, which will be next week's episode. I will be watching for maybe the fourth time.
And me for the first.
Yes, and you for the first. It is called Searching for Sugar Man. It is a music themed documentary. It's such an interesting story. So these two men in South Africa who one of them, I believe, runs a record shop. They have this famous artist that really no one has ever heard of. And there were all these horrible rumors about how he died and all of these things. And so they start deciding, like, let's look into this. Like, we have the resources and we know the right people that can help us, like, track down the actual story of this guy. And that's what the documentary is. I'm not going to give away more than that. But it just turns into this other story again, kind of.
Again. I feel like that's like the
twist.
The twist that we're going for. So I was looking up so I could tell everybody where you can watch it. So there, you can for purchase on, kind of the regular YouTube, Google, Apple. Did you know Fandango now has a streaming service? There you go.
Everybody has a stream. Isn't Chick-fil-A coming out with a streaming service?
We used to buy movie tickets off Fandango. Remember that?
I know, but everybody has a streaming service. Chick-fil-A is coming out with a streaming service. That was not an April Fool's joke.
Speaking of Chick-fil-A, do you know that they have a blue menu store at College Park?
No.
Yeah.
I do now.
I feel like that's a field trip we just
done. That and Pepe's. We still have to do Pepe's.
Yes.
My childhood pizza. Anyway.
That's awesome. So it's up for purchase, and just so you know, has a 95% rating on Rotten Tomatoes. So we are not leading you. Elaine would never lead you astray on a documentary.
Never.
Ever. So it has, wonderful ratings, and we're really excited. I'll be watching it for the first time, like all of you. And of course, remember we, we'll have spoilers on that. So, remember to, watch it before you start the episode. We'll always tell you, that there'll be spoilers, but, there you have it. Really excited about this one. And this was an episode of Interesting AF around how to exit conversations. And as always, Elaine will take us out.
Stay interested, everybody.
Bye.